Hey there, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with next week's stocks to watch for trading and investing. Normally, I do this just for the pro members every week, but I decided to show it to everybody this week. We got a pretty good list to go through, and as I indicated on the blog, the indexes, there's no denying. We are had a very interesting, powerful week last week, even with Gary Cohn resigning, and let's see what else do we have going on. The tariffs being imposed, and all this stuff. We had potential for some outside political and macroeconomic things to impact the markets, and they held up incredibly well. Here's my issue: we're overbought. We're overbought in just about every one of them, and we've had a 4, 5, 6 day run, right? So wouldn't be totally shocking if we were to take a pause, pull back. We're coming up into price resistance on some of these, all-time highs on others. But then again, we had news out of Intel after the close on Friday that they may be looking to buy Broadcom. Broadcom took off after hours. So semis, which have been a sector that have been incredible, stood out above all other sectors, could continue to rip higher. So, semiconductors are of focus this week. Construction and engineering, I have a couple of names there that I thought had interesting moves last week. Biotech, small cap, unbelievable. A lot of good looking charts out there in that space. But I'm looking here at the IBB, and we've had a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 days in a row, and we're extremely overbought. So could we take a pause? It could happen, and I think that would be a good thing, actually. So IWM, another one that's coming up into potential price resistance right around 160. One thing that I found very encouraging, IYT. I noticed a couple of trucker names that were looking pretty interesting too. YRCW had a little bit of a bounce. Swift Transportation, oh my lord, look at the daily on that thing. Lower left, upper right, beautiful looking chart on that one. But IYT broke over this trend line and testing the 50-day. I thought that was a pretty positive development on Friday. Let's talk about the SPY, right? The S&P 500, we reclaimed, or we broke over the little trend line here. Let me get to it. Broke over the trend line, very positive, right? Now let's see but overbought. Every one of these things is overbought. So that is my concern in the near term. Like I said, maybe we see consolidation, maybe we see a pause and pull back. But very, very impressive action last week. The bulls appear to be back in control. Let's see if we can hold on to that. Look at the NASDAQ making all-time highs, right? So SMH, let's look at that real quick here. Boom, all-time highs. Very, very impressive move. And it's had a heck of a run. So after the news on Friday, Intel, Broadcom, I expect semis to continue to be hot, and we'll see how this plays out. I'm very impressed. Does that mean we're never going back to test those February lows? Hey, I don't know. I mean, could we at some point? Possibly, but the bulls are looking in charge. All right, let's get so real quick, let's take a look. Well, you know what, you've got the economic calendar on the blog. You can see what's coming up for next week. And we've got earnings, more earnings coming out. And there are some names in their earnings. I mean, we're wrapping up earnings season, but there are some names in that next week that could be interesting. Some of the smaller cap names. So there could be some plays definitely off of earnings again next week. All right, but let's go ahead and hop into the list. And one thing I want you to understand about the list that I've got coming up here, I have all types of different traders within the membership at Alpha Wolf Trading. Some like to trade small caps, some like to trade low floaters, some like to swing, some like to just day trade. So it's a kind of a mixture of a bunch of different, and I try to provide something for everyone. And that is what you can expect as a member of Alpha Wolf Trading for only $197 a year. That's it. $197 a year. Just over 50 cents a day. And you get these every week. You get these stocks to watch videos every week. You get pre-market prep videos every day. Post-market wrap videos every day. Swing trade alerts. Long-term trade alerts. All kinds of stuff. You got to check it out. But anyway, let's get into the list. $197. Ridiculously priced. I do really think I kind of lost my mind. Really, in all seriousness, the reason why is I want to help as many people as I can. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of dough. Some people don't have a lot of dough when they first start deciding they want to try and get into the market. And I want to make this as cost efficient as possible. All right, so SPKE. Utility name. Now, there's some questionable stuff going on with this company. They announced on Friday that they hired Morgan Stanley to do some strategic alternatives, to increase shareholder value. This thing has been in a downtrend for a while. Like I said, I think there's some pretty big stuff going on with this company potentially. But, look, it had a big pop on Friday on good volume. It's only got 8.5 million shares in the float and 43% short interest. Maybe look for a red to green in this. Day trading opportunity, high risk swing. When I say high risk swing, maybe if you take it for a day trade on a red to green, you bank some, and then you hold some lottos to see if you get any follow through, and maybe take out the 100 EMA. Around $11.70, $12, right? And let the lottos run. But I would be taking some off the table, probably around $11.60. So you look for a pullback to $10.50, see if you can get a pop to $11.60. You take some off the table, and then hold a few shares, see if you can get some follow through. TNTR, application software company, nice pop on Friday. And this was off of earnings. So it took out the 50-day moving average. You got the stochastics curling up. You had a nice volume day. 22.5 million shares. You know how many shares are in the float? 21.9. Traded its entire float on Friday. So this could be very interesting to keep an eye on for a red to green. Could be a swing. Could be a day trading opportunity. Maybe look for a pullback into this area of congestion. I would say try to get it as close to $6 as possible, right? Get a pullback to 6. Maybe this flags out here, but a pullback to 6. See if it holds the support. Could be an entry, like I said, for a swing, or maybe just a day trade bounce, red to green. But I like TNTR quite a bit because of that huge volume surge on Friday. NVEE. So here's one of those engineering construction names that I talked about. Look at the pop that this thing had right into price resistance. Now, this may need a bit of time to consolidate here. Maybe we get a pullback. If this thing were to drift on down to $51, you got to do a little due diligence on this. This is 7.9 million shares in the float, super tiny, traded 300,000 shares. But this could be a swing on a pullback to $51, somewhere in that area. If it holds its support, it could be a red to green, take out $56, day trade, maybe get a 60 test. I like this setup quite a bit, and it looked like they gave great earnings and good guidance. So this one is definitely worth having on the radar for either a swing or long-term hold. And I like or long-term hold or day trade, depending on the price action, but. Pretty impressive move on Friday. Here's another one. Another engineering construction happens to have about the same amount of shares. 7 million shares in the float. And they are participating in the Roth conference next, I think this week. Hold on. March 12th. So they have something coming up. And they just reported strong fourth quarter. Right, so another one, 7 million shares, not as big of a short position, almost 10%, overbought. Look, make sure you look at that on all of these charts that I'm going through. They are overbought, right? So WLDN here, overbought, but maybe a red to green move on this one too. Look for a pullback to say 25.50, 25.60. See if that holds the support for a bounce. But maybe we drift back down here and we test these levels at $23. Close the gap. That could be an interesting spot to potentially take it for a swing. But I don't like the death cross, the 50 below the 200 day, and I don't really like the slope of the 200 day or the 50 day. But I do like if you're going to consider taking this for a swing, you have to make sure you go and do your due diligence, listen to the conference call, learn about the company, and take it from there. I think that potentially this thing goes up to $28, $29, somewhere in that 28. Right? We've got the 200-day moving average there. See if that acts as resistance. You got price resistance there, potential price resistance. I like WLDN. Another one worth keeping an eye on, small floater. UPLD had this on Friday as a potential red to green move, put it out on the pre-market prep, and it's exactly what it did. It opened up, it went red, and then it turned around and bounced. And then, did I catch it? I did not. I didn't have my entry set, but it was a perfect play. Now looking for potential red to green move. This thing is in blue skies. It's all-time highs. 7.2 million shares in the float, traded 1.5 million shares, and no resistance overhead. Blue skies. So, maybe we consolidate here at a nice round number like $30. Maybe you drift back, you pull back. It'd be great if it pulled back to $25 where it was acting as resistance before it decided to bust on through. Not sure you're going to get that opportunity, but maybe a pullback to 27.50 could be an interesting spot. See if it holds for a bounce. But UPLD, good looking setup there, and love the fact that it's in blue sky. APRN, look, this is a potential bottom bounce. There was some CEO buying at higher prices, $389, right? And I mean, the problem with APRN is we do not know where the floor is. Right, we have no idea where the floor is. There's been some insider selling there as well. But what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at this long-term trend line, right? And we kind of broke above it, and then we're coming back down, and we're kind of testing the top of it, and we're testing $2 as price support. So we got a round number that seems to be acting as price support. We're on the top of a trend line. Testing that, thinking maybe we could get a bounce. High risk swing possibility on a trend line break. You're going to have some resistance up to about $3. But from 220 to $3, that's a nice little clip, right? I'm not sure what the short interest is on APRN, but I think this is kind of interesting looking here. Maybe you take it as close to $2. Look for a pullback to 214, 210. See if you get an entry there, and then you put your stop at say 195, right, or 180, whatever you're comfortable with. But I think your risk reward, if you get it close to $2, and say you put your stop at 185, right, the risk reward to go up and test $3 is pretty darn good on APRN. It's just, you play it size appropriate just because of the fact that it's a higher risk trade, but I think it's worth at least having on your radar. KDMN, one of the pro members, actually posted this, and it is kind of interesting. It got a little bit of a pop. Now, look, small cap biotechs, low float biotechs are kind of hot right now. So this had a little bit of a bounce on Friday, rising volume. MACD actually just went positive. And it's flirting with the 50-day. There are a lot of patterns out there that look just like this, right? Bear flag pattern. And, we had a conversation about this in the live session the other day. Bear flag patterns are just like bull flag patterns, right? Yes, it is a bear flag, but does that mean it's going to break and go lower? I mean, we have failed breakouts to the upside with bull flags. You can have failed breakdowns to the downside with bear flags, right? A lot of breakouts in either direction fail. So, it had a little bit of a bounce. It took out the 50-day. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. It's likely going to have some resistance around $4.50 and this trend line, have to see how it acts there and see if we get any kind of real volume. It did trade 1.7 million shares on Friday. Maybe this gets a red to green. You get a pullback to 395, and then you get a bounce up to this 450 area. That's a decent clip for a scalp or day trade. So it's worth keeping an eye on. KDMN. PFIE, oil and service equipment, another sector that I think is kind of interesting. They just reported earnings. This had a nice pop, had a beautiful setup on the daily. It just pulled back to the 50-day moving average. Traded good volume, 751,000 shares on Friday. So you got some liquidity. It's only got 24 million shares in the float. This is a good looking setup. I like this one quite a bit. Thinking maybe red to green. Thinking maybe pull back to $2.18, 220 could be an interesting spot to get involved. And then you've got support, which appears to be price support at $2. And you've got some moving averages there as potential support. So I like the look of this. I like the fact that they just reported a good earnings report, and I kind of like the space. So let me see. Back this out to the weekly. It's added. It actually has just broken through an area of potential price resistance. I think it's kind of compelling. It's worth keeping an eye on PFIE. I think potentially we get a test up into the $3 area. Could be a day trade, could be a higher risk swing. You pull back to $2. I would be interested in potentially taking it there. INSG, full disclosure, I have shares. I've played this from actually way down here. I think it was $1.09, somewhere in that area. I can't remember exactly, but been in it for a while, taking some profit, but still riding it. And it's had a really difficult time getting through this $2.30 area of price resistance. If we take it out, it could get a nice little pop in here. A little red to green move. I could look to add back to my position. Traded 763,000 shares on Friday, but it already has had a pretty nice move, and it's getting a little extended. It's piercing the upper Bollinger Band. Maybe we consolidate here in a nice tight fashion and then take out that area of resistance. That would be a healthier move. It also is approaching overbought, but I like INSG quite a bit. We'll see what it does next week. PTIE, testing the $8 holla. Small, biotech, 4.5 million shares in the float, 15% short interest, not overbought. Nice setup here. It's been holding on to the 50-day moving average. I like it. I like it for a break over $8 with some conviction. If it gets any kind of real volume, this could be this could be in play. So a little bit of volume on Friday, 284,000 shares. Worth keeping an eye on this one for a potential day trading or scalp opportunity if we get some real volume and take out $8. Let's see. SRNE. So here's another one of those patterns I just talked about, right? Kind of a bear flag right on top of a 50-day moving average. Insider buys at $9.95, 90,000 shares on March 2nd. That's a significant insider buy. They have an event coming up this week on the 12th. So could get a catalyst that comes out of that meeting. Flirting with the $8 holla. I really almost took this for a swing I wanted to get it as close to $7 as possible. And I had the opportunity. I just didn't pull the trigger. But, now maybe looking for a red to green move on this. If they report some kind of news from this conference that they're at, it could be in play. Could be a day trading opportunity. Could be a high risk swing on a pullback to the 50-day or $7, as close to $7 as possible. I like it for a potential day trade. 55 million shares in the float, 4.5% short interest. Not a big short interest, but it could be also a high risk swing. PES, another oil and gas drilling name. A little bit of a pop, testing the $3 holla, testing the 50-day moving average, testing the trend line. Right? Above the 200-day, you got the golden cross over here. Had a nice little pop and pull back on lower volume, and it's actually trades 624,000 shares. It's decent. 66.3 million shares in the float. Maybe looking for a trend line break, possibly on a pullback to 260. that could be an interesting spot for a swing, a potential bounce, right? We've got potential price support there in the 260 area, but I like this look on PES as well. AEHR, a little bit. I've been watching this for quite a while, actually consolidate, and 217 has been 220 actually, 219, 217 has been holding as support. And I was watching it base out a little bit there and been looking for, they actually have just reported earnings already. Oh, speaking of that, make sure you check that none of these have earnings on deck before you go jumping in. But AEHR, earnings are behind them. They are presenting this week, the 11th through the 15th. Had a little bit of a pop on Friday, testing the 50-day. Here's what I'm thinking. Pull back to 240, 235, somewhere in that area. Could be interesting as a potential swing. High risk swing because of the small float. Could be a day trade if it's getting some significant volume. But actually, I've been kind of leaning towards taking a swing in this. I think potentially you get a pop up into the 275 area. You're likely going to have resistance there. But if you wind up taking out this trend line, you know, you're going to get the $3 holla and then some, right up to the 200-day moving average around 325. Very, semiconductor name too. So worth keeping an eye on AEHR. I think it's kind of compelling. Higher risk, but worth keeping an eye on. XON, another biotech name, 56 million shares in the float, 34% short interest. A nice little flag pattern after a pop there, consolidating just below the 200-day and this trend line, right? So we got a lot happening here. We got price resistance that acted as support, acted as resistance, acting as resistance. Little flag pattern there. Got the 200-day. If it takes that area out, it could be pretty explosive. It's probably going to have some kind of news to make that happen, but the technical setup is somewhat interesting. ACLS, it's another semiconductor name. Let's see. It is overbought, but it is, reclaiming this cluster of moving averages, potentially getting a $27 holla, a round number roll, and then where can we go? Maybe we go up into the $29 area. 26 million shares in the float, small float, but trades pretty good volume, 587,000 shares. Maybe you look for a pullback to $26 or $25.90 and see if it holds for a bounce. A little red to green action there. Semis, like I said, I think going to be a pretty interesting space next week. GPRE, specialty chemicals, flirting with 19 bucks. Stochastic starting to curl up. What caught my eye is that it broke this trend line. You've got CFO bought 30,000 shares at 17 bucks. I just like the way it's kind of consolidating here at the 200-day above this trend line. Maybe a pullback to 18. This might be more of a swing. Pull back to 18 bucks could be interesting for an entry. If it pops over 1950 with real volume, could be a day trading opportunity. 32 million shares in the float, 20% short interest. So I like GPRE. I like the look of it. Like I said, depending on the price action, could be a day trade or a swing. CBay, really good looking setup here on CBay, right? Consolidating, flirting with a potential 15 roll. Stochastic starting to curl. Biotech, which is kind of hot, 21 million shares in the float, 5% short interest. They report earnings Thursday, March 15th. So look, it could pop ahead of earnings. I would not hold through earnings, right? And then it may not pop. It may wait until earnings before it does something. But this baby's flirting with all-time highs. So blue sky overhead. If they report good earnings, this could break out and be on a nice run with no resistance overhead. DRNA flirting with $14 holla, had a little bit of a pop and pull. Maybe you shake some people out that tried to chase this breakout, pull back to $12, test the 20-day. Could be an interesting spot for support and a bounce. Potential day trading opportunity, 17 million shares in the float. Got to have some volume, but it traded 726,000 shares on Friday. That's a pretty good amount of volume. So you've got liquidity to be able to get in and out. Like I said, look for a pullback into the $12 area. That could be a great place for a bounce. Okay, so let's move on from DRNA Tuesday. So listen, anybody that's been following me for a while knows I do not like retail. But you know what? There's some charts out there that look pretty compelling in retail, and Tuesday is one of them. Now, it's already had a pretty big move. Earnings, I believe, are behind it. You know, look for a pullback maybe into the $3 area. See if that acts as support. If you take out 350 with some volume, there could be a day trade or scalp opportunity there. But what I'm looking at here is maybe a pullback to 3. See if that holds as support. Maybe you just consolidate out here for a bit and then take out this flat top breakout. But it does have an interesting look. You've got the golden cross back here. You've got the moving averages sloping higher. There is a lot to like about this chart. I probably won't trade it, but you know what? I thought it was worth pointing out. STRL. So look, these guys reported earnings on Monday, and I really missed the opportunity. I have been watching this, and I was looking for a red to green move off of earnings. Earnings were great, and guidance was good, and the stock opened and pulled. And I was looking to get an entry at $11. It actually wound up going about $10.90 or so. And I didn't have my limit buy set, and then once it started bouncing, I did not want to chase it. So as I'm looking at it, it's coming up into this trend line as potential resistance right around $13, $13.20 or so. It's overbought. It's approaching overbought. And the COO purchased 8,000 shares at $12.43. So that happened last week. So, look, I'm looking for this to pull back. Maybe test the $12 area again, right? So find some resistance here at the 50 EMA and at this trend line. Pull back to $12. And I'm looking at this as a long-term swing, a long-term hold or swing trade opportunity. Looking to build out a position over time. Like I said, missed that red to green, but called it out in pre-market prep for the pro members. And it worked perfectly. I just didn't get entry. But I am keeping an eye on this, and I found it interesting that the COO picked up shares at $12.43. FLDM, I've been watching this for a while. Now, this one is kind of lacking volume. It traded 168,000 shares, but it's been riding. I've been looking at it on this trend line here. It broke below the 50-day and kind of, getting a little bit of a bear flag there, but then just popped on Friday. Not a tremendous amount of volume, but maybe a red to green on this one. Pull back to 640, or 650. See if that holds the support. Take out the $7 holla. Maybe get a retest back up into that 780, 790 area. Potential day trade, 17 million shares in the float, 20% short interest, at least worth having on the radar. SOI, one of our pro members who's really kind of our IPO expert, brought this to our attention on Friday. They just reported earnings, had a little pop off of earnings and then pulled back. But it's been holding on to this trend line for a while. And I think it would be potentially interesting or compelling on a pullback to say 1650 or so. See if that holds a support for a bounce. I think that maybe some people got shaken out, will get shaken out on this, trying to chase this breakout. But you pull back to support and then bounce could be an interesting setup. This has only got 10 million shares in the float, but it traded 673,000 shares on Friday, so there is some liquidity there in the name. APPS, full disclosure, I own this from much lower levels. I only now have a lotto position that's running, but I am looking to potentially add. I love the way this has been acting. It's been stair-stepping higher. Stochastic starting to curl. Got a little bit of a pop on Friday. It trades great volume. It's just a bit of a slow mover. So I guess what I'm kind of thinking is if it gets down to the 226, 225 area, I may add to the position. I just love the way that this is setting up. Their earnings have been improving. You know, they seem to be turning the corner here. 68 million shares in the float. Looking for this to eventually go, retest this 260 or actually 250 and then take it out. And looking for potentially a $3 holla on APPS. CGEN, great looking potential flat top breakout, right? Nice pattern here developing after it had a big move up, consolidating. They have an event this week, March 13th. They're presenting at a conference. I'm not sure when their earnings are. Make sure you check that out. Hold on. Actually, February 21st. Looks like they already did earnings. Pretty good looking setup here. Potential flat top breakout. Maybe they announce something at this presentation that they're doing this week that gives it a pop. 49 million shares in the float. 3% short interest. Not a big short interest, but a great looking setup for a flat top breakout there. ALDX, another biotech, flirting with the $9 holla. Spending, consolidating. Issue is not a lot of volume. 75,000 shares traded hands on Friday, and approaching. I mean, it's been overbought for a while. So, but look, 6.6 million shares in the float, right? If some news hits, and it's likely going to take that, you could have a pretty nice pop in this. And I like the slope of the moving averages, right? All sloping higher. Pretty good looking setup there on ALDX. Day trade potential opportunity. KLDX. 10% owner buys 165,000 shares at $1.37. 10% owner's not as exciting to me as the CEO or CFO, but still interesting. And then if you back this KLDX up on the weekly, this is actually kind of in an area of potential support for a bounce, and stochastics are curled up on the weekly. I don't know. Maybe there's a day trading opportunity or a scalp opportunity in this. It's not exactly a thin stock. It's 150 million shares in the float. But, maybe on a pullback to 127 or 127, you get it 10 cents below where the 10% buyer bought it. I don't know. Could be interesting there. Just worth keeping an eye on. And let's see what else we've got. I've only got a few more here, and then I'll be done. Luna reports next week. I've been watching this for actually quite a while. It's it's finding resistance in this area. It's got a pretty interesting setup. They report earnings. If they report good earnings, I think you take out that 260 area, 267, 270 area, and get a three test and roll. But the fiber optic sensor market has been weak, right? AAOI. What's the other one that just reported? FNSR just reported, and they were disappointing, and a lot of that has to do with the 5G, rollout kind of being pushed off a little bit, and their guidance FNSR was not great, so that space is not doing real great right now, but and we'll see what Luna does. We'll see what they report. But that could be acting as resistance for a reason, that area. Bison, great earnings report last week. Big pop. Look, could be a day trade on a break over $49 with conviction. Could be a swing opportunity on a pullback. Maybe take a starter in the $44 area. If it pulled back to $39, I would add to that position. They had a great earnings. They gave great guidance, but it does have a gap on the daily that could potentially fill. This would be more of a long-term hold for me, but it could also be a day trading opportunity as well. So had good range last week. We actually had a couple of guys in the live chat that traded this beautifully on a pullback and bounce on, I don't know, Thursday or Friday, one of the two, but. Excellent. I think it was Thursday, actually. Excellent trade on that. But I think it's, worth keeping a close eye on, especially if it were to pull back. Man, if this thing pulled back $37, I'd be more than happy to take it for a long-term hold in that area, or as close to this trend line as possible. So not a good looking chart, right? Not a good looking chart at all. But pull it on a weekly time frame, we are at an area of potential price support, and we just had the CFO pick up, and I love it when the CFO buys at $14.16, 110,000 shares, right? So, really, really like the potential chance for a bounce here on this one. It's testing this trend line. It's going to have some resistance overhead. But look, even if it just comes back up into this potential price resistance, that's $2 and change move, right? It's got 4.4 million shares in the float, 101,000 shares traded hands on Friday. It's just got a super tiny float. You got to have some volume, but just to come back up and test the 50-day, that's $18. That's a $4 move. I think it's worth maybe taking for a high-risk swing, joining this CFO on VERI. RBBN, another one with an insider buy CEO, 75,000 shares, $5.66. And then if we back this out to the weekly time frame, actually, let's back it out to the monthly. We're right at an area of potential price support. Look at how it acted. I mean, this was support back in 2009, support back in 2016, support back in 2017, and looks like we're testing that support again in 2018. Maybe we get a decent bounce here. That is a bear flag. Not in a big rush on this one, but pull back and retest a double bottom here, 550. If it pulls back to 550, could be an interesting spot to take it. You put 10 or 20 cents on it as a potential stop. See if you get a bounce and come back up into that $6.50 area. MLCO, long-term hold consideration for me. I want to get in. I just got a fill on Friday in Caesars, which is another one that I've been wanting to build a position in. I got a fill on that one, but I'm also looking to take Melco. Now, it's at an area, it's having some challenges here in the $30 area, $29, $30. Like to get this on a pullback to 25 and change. 24.60 would be great. A pullback to the 200-day. We've got an event next week about Japan, or it starts next week about casinos and how many of them potentially in Japan. That could be some kind of a catalyst for Melco if we get any news out of there. Worth keeping an eye on. I like this for a long-term hold. I actually had this down at much lower levels. Me and a couple of the members did, and we made some money on it, but I left a lot of money on the table. It just kept on running. So looking to get back in, like it quite a bit. KTOS, full disclosure, I have a position. I'm building out a long-term hold position. I like the space that these guys are in. However, there is an event this week, JP Morgan, I think. KTOS will be presenting. We could get some color on these tariffs and whether or not that will impact their margins. If that's the case, we could see a pullback. If we see a pullback, I will be looking to add anywhere from 10.50 down to 9 and change. I would be looking to add to my position. A CEO bought some shares, I think at 10.25 or so. This is a long-term hold play. I like aerospace defense. These guys have some interesting drones. I actually like several of the sectors that they're in, or several of the divisions that they have products in. So looking to potentially add to KTOS this week. And then MARK, they also present this week. This is one that just had a hit piece come out from a short seller. It actually wound up, bouncing pretty good actually after that piece. Did take a pretty big hit, but it's above the 200-day. They present next week. They could have something that they present that gives it a little pop. It already kind of ran into this event, right? It was up like 4 days in a row. Pulled back a little bit on Friday. It's overbought. Don't chase this thing, right? Look for some kind of an intraday setup. Maybe a pullback to 760, 750. It gets interesting. And then if they report something stellar at this thing, look for an intraday setup. If we take out, we could take out 950, 960, $10 holla. Could be a day trading scalp opportunity there as well. High risk swing on a pullback to 750. I don't know. Worth at least keeping an eye on for a trade because of that small float and a potential catalyst ahead of us. All right, I know that was a lot, but you know what? And this is by no means all the good-looking stocks out there. There are a ton of good-looking setups, but these are some that we can pay close attention to. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it worth your time. I hope you found some good potential trading opportunities. If you're interested in joining us at Alpha Wolf Trading, I've got a great group of people, and I'm looking for more great people. The live webinar that we do is open mic for right now. I don't have a tremendous amount of members. I have a nice group. Not everybody can make it to the chat room all the time, but it's open mic, and it's likely to stay that way as long as everybody respects the rules. Come check us out. Next Friday for the pre-market, or actually next Friday after I put out the blog and the pre-market prep post, next Friday, I'm opening up the live trading room to everyone. All right, so we're going to do that on Free Friday every Friday. Let you get a feel of what we do there, and that's it. Good luck trading next week. Don't chase. We're overbought. Keep that in mind. But it does appear as though the bulls are in charge. All right. Have a great Sunday, and I'll see you all next week.